Thanks very much. It's a very important subject, but at times for me, I need to seek clarity for myself as well. How do we define culture? I work for a company, CSC. You may not have heard about this company. It has come into India very recently. It is into crowd management. They manage Olympics, they manage US presidential inaugurations, and they are into technology-driven crowd management. Over the years, I have seen, and in different companies, how the culture has been changing. My question is culture different in different industries? Because technology has grown now and is expanding very fast. In a technology-driven company, the culture would be slightly different. In a security company, it will be different. In some places, you have to be in time, and other places, your work is important and you can come anytime in. So my first question would be to you, sir. How do we define culture and what are the components of the culture?
While there could be multiple academic definitions of culture, and very good afternoon to all of you and my fellow colleagues in the panel. But I think, the fundamentals of culture definitely is driven out of, as you said, the kind of business that you are into, the kind of, environmental challenges that you are driving. What is the kind of vision that the leadership has? And at the end of the day, how are you amalgamating people? Because, the way in a fission reaction in physics, the neutrons carry the reaction. In an organization, the culture and the change makers are the people. So the culture drivers are people. So what kind of people are there? What kind of people you've got into the organization, typically what background they're from, and what kind of, building up that you've done in that category, so to say. And I would take a small example of what we recently went through, during COVID. And I represent the aerospace and defense in the Tata group. So, as COVID struck, while just the week or two when everybody was trying to, fathom, how to bring milk and how to bring grocery at home, we were fathoming how to open the factories because that was the requirement of the nation and the world. And, I actually saw the organization very quickly, the company, people gearing up so fast on how to open factories, how to provide safety to people, how to, manufacture and so on and so forth. And people actually came in. And I saw, that entire culture of, empowering people actually coming to fore. The culture of collaboration that we have built over a period of time, coming to fore of how people came together, opened those factories, ensured safety. As a culture, we've spoken about care extensively. How would, is there care in the culture? I honestly saw that care coming, forth. And then, of course, around the same time, I spoke to many other friends of mine and colleagues and all that. They said that, maybe in a company like yours, where there is culture of care and care comes naturally, when you reached out to employees, made sure that they're taken care of, it was part of your culture. But many organizations where care as a culture was not developed, and when people reached out, the bosses couldn't actually ask, how's your family doing? Because 5 years before the COVID, that guy had never asked his junior as to who are there in your team. So suddenly he did not know how to, ask this question, how's your family doing? How's your son? Whereas organizations which had this culture of care, it was so much easy for the boss to just say, oh, how's your son doing in online classes? Oh, your daughter was in class 12th. How's she doing? And so on and so forth. So I think it is built over a period of time. It is by the people, for the people, as you say. So I think the culture is that, and extensively driven by leadership vision, and to the extent the business and the customers that you're trying to do in a most practical way, if I could explain that, Harshji.
Excellent, very nicely explained. Sir, your comments.
So I think if we go by the theoretical definition, culture is basically a set of attributes which make a company unique. Okay. And I'll talk about our company, Hughes Systique. We are a digital engineering solutions and services company, so working in the high-tech space. The way we interpret culture is a shared set of values, goals, and practices / behaviors. And I would like to emphasize on behaviors, right? So for example, if you come to our company, unlike a lot of other companies, we don't have our values or a culture printed and put on posters and displayed all over the office, right? What is important is what are the behaviors which you will promote, you will nurture, and that is what we believe makes a company's culture. Now, having said that, I think it's very, very important for any company and the leadership, as you said, to spend time, focus on building and nurturing the culture, okay, right from day one, because that is something which will make your company unique, whether it is product, whether it is marketing strategies, even innovation. All of this can be replicated, okay, it can be copied over a period of time. But your unique identifier, your unique culture, the values you stand for, okay, and the behaviors you embody and your employees display, and especially in challenging times. That is what I think matters, and that is what makes the culture of the company and makes that company unique. And I believe that is something, if you invest in building a culture, will help you in competing, in making you unique, and that in turn will help you in attracting talent, in retaining talent.
Very well said, In my previous job, it was in Group 4, it was a security company. My boss made sure that when security guards were working at night, whenever as managing director, I wanted to supervise them, because it was defined that every level you have to supervise and see if they are facing any problem. He made me sure that I carried tea, coffee, and will not go, how are you standing and what are you doing? At night, anytime. Second thing, I was reprimanded because one of my employees got the salary on 7th, whereas date was 1st. He just gave me a phone call saying that you got your salary, this guard hasn't got it. And that's the reason I would say I don't remember anyone left our company. And this became the world's largest manned security company in a period of 8 years. So I'm coming back to your point, having a concern and care, and just taking care of the other requirements at their level, it was very important,
Harshi, this reminds me of one example that, someone gave me. The gentleman was from DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. He had worked with APJ Abdul Kalam. And the memory that he gave of that incident was, when he was heading the missile program, the role that Mr. Kalam played, there would be test fires and so on and so forth, sometimes successful, most of the time unsuccessful, many times unsuccessful, I would say. After each unsuccessful, thing, all these guys would come together. Even though he was director of the program, in the night, he would come with mugs of black coffee to various rooms, saying that, oh guys, how's it going? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? So I think that is building of the culture. That is building ownership in the teams who have to drive. So Harji, great example of building culture.
The
I was just
other thing which you mentioned in terms of the previous session was talking about the training part of it. The training in any field, whether it's a security or in different, in the organization, it's very, very important. And before that, joining G4S, I used to work for Pepsi Cola. So again, the same boss said that you have been selling in a lighter vein colored water. Now people will not respect you. Neither you are from police, nor from army, nor you are a tall person. Why should somebody respect you? You're not from the background, So I was made to get the training with the cards. That time, no air conditioning and everything was there. And secondly, I was made to stand as a security guard at the American Embassy gate, until their regional security officer found out who's this new gentleman, because every day I passed through, why he's standing there. He asked the assignment manager. He says, no, sir, he is our MD, He says, no, but his verification has not been done, So I was spared. So I could go back to that. So the training at any level, on a refresher training, regular training, by the time somebody said you get trained, technology is so fast, then, you have to be catching up with that, So your views on that, on the definition, on components?
So, since we're talking about culture, see, and I'm going to make it very simple for the audience today. See, in my mind, every organization is defined by, what they're going to provide as a service or a product to the client. But, when you hire, you probably have a job description which talks about, what's your KRA, what is the kind of work that you're going to do, which is more on the knowledge specific areas. But what does culture drive in that aspect is going to be, how do you deliver those same expectation that you have in the organization, which is through, is it a collaborative way that you're going to drive? Is it an innovation that you have to expect? Or, what kind of a communication that happens in the organization? And your example on the training of, is it an organization where you expect that you become a subject matter expert, you continue to do years and years and become a, expertise in that area? Or the culture is, how can you learn more? How can you, today you are a Java specialist, tomorrow can you learn on the job and become a data scientist, say for an example. And that's what, a culture of an organization talks about. Now, let me ask a question, to my panel, what does Apple, when you hear about the organization Apple, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Innovation? Innovative? When you think about Google, what comes to the mind? And we hear about, why do people aspire to join Google? Why? Open culture, flexibility. Again, innovation comes to the mind. And that's the unique value proposition that organization brings in. Now, when we think about learning as a set of an example, today, if I talk about IT, because I represent IT from while we are a fintech organization, but a lot of my career, in the last 10 years have been in the IT sector. One of the specific, if anybody asked me, what would you hire for the future? I would never say that I would hire a person because today he's doing Java. I would hire a person who has a learning mindset, because today the IT or the technology organization doesn't know what will be the 10-year future, the way the technology is moving so fast. Till today, earlier we used to have system of swiping ID cards to biometrics, to today you don't even need to swipe anything. The moment you plug in your laptop and it's connected to a VPN, people know that you're in the office, right? So you don't need all those attendance management system. That's how technology is moving. Today in HR, you earlier had an HR operations team. Now you have chatbots to, do a lot of operation aspect. Tomorrow you have multiple other ways to do, same kind of a job that you're doing. So I think that, do you want to hire talent for today, or you want to hire talent for tomorrow, where tomorrow is unclear to the organization? They do want to hire people where, there is a lot of learning, relearning and unlearning. And I think that goes back to, do you set that kind of a culture in the organization where learning becomes a behavior? You're able to try new things, you're able to fail and fail fast, because that's where learning happens, from your traditional learning through classroom to online to, I think last session we were talking about sushi bite sessions, but that's the mindset that organizations will have to start building. I mean, IT is a little progressive in that sense because they have seen so much of disruptions in the last 15 to 20 years. So learning, and they put in a lot of investment towards the learning aspect. So I feel, learning is going to be a big cultural difference, which is going to differentiate one organization to another.
Excellent. The learning mind, which you mentioned, on the basis you would hire the people. Absolutely right, as the technology is changing very fast. To me, I would say culture of an organization, if I was to assess, starts from the interview process. Many times what happens is whether it's whosoever is interviewing, if you keep calling the candidate and make him sit, don't respect the time, it starts from that angle. Secondly, onboarding is very important. Onboarding, when the person comes and how he is being treated. Eventually, I would also say that when employees become ambassadors of the company, then I would say the culture of the company is good. Even the exit time, if you are not doing, if somebody is resigned and not taking care of it or delaying his salaries, not giving him the required letters, etc., I would evaluate that as the culture. Many places say, no, make him wait. He has come for a job. That doesn't work. So I would say the happiness of the organization, the happiness of the company is related with the results, eventual corporate success. When your employees go outside and talk about it, even if they have left it and they refer the candidates, that's how the people keep coming back to them. Well, the compensation is again a very important part. We can't dismiss it. In my case, what I have been doing is that even giving the letter, people come in for the appointment letter, I give them the promotion letter. It means that letter defines if you achieve A, B, C, D, E, you will automatically be promoted. There won't be any biases. Anyway, instead of so I have to ask your opinion on the whole thing. And the other question which I'm going to ask is, does being a lady CHRO, because here we have in most of the organizations, nowadays, especially in IT and other companies, the HR heads are lady executives, I'm not saying from any biases point of view. Does that influence in any manner to creating a better culture?
That was repeated, but okay, just coming back to the culture part of it. I wouldn't start to say there is a good culture or a bad culture. I would start to say there is a culture that an organization stands for. For me, it is those shared values. It is demonstrated conversations. It is demonstrated behaviors. How do they stack up in terms of your decision making? How do they stack up in terms of your operating processes, etc.? To me, that is culture. Now, when I was listening to all of you, there was a question in the panel discussion format. And it was talking about healthy culture. Some of us, what we were touching was healthy culture, not really the culture part of it, because I wouldn't say culture to me is neutral, right? And it can have definitions as it suits. To me, healthy culture is one which is expansive. To me, healthy culture is one that makes you psychologically safe. It makes you physically safe. It lets you to be vulnerable. To me, if all of those tenets exist in the organization, you can stand for whatever. And the true testimony to organizations which had healthy cultures came in the time of COVID, when everybody was far off, there were no physical presence, and still people were connected. To me, connectedness is what defines culture. And therefore, different organizations have very different culture, right? You step into it, you know the culture. It isn't tangible, it's very, very intangible, but the tenets behind are all tangible, right? So your behaviors are tangible. Your process rule books are tangible. How you greet a person is tangible. So culture is something which is fluid, but at the base, it is all very much tangible. Now, coming to your female question, I think gender sometimes does bring a very different kind of a conversation in the organization, right? So for me, that inclusive thing comes in. And I wouldn't say good, bad, ugly. I would just say it just becomes a little more richer, a fabric, because you somehow become a little more conscious about the different voices which are there in the system, the different preferences that may exist in an organization, etc. It becomes a little more richer a tapestry. And personally, I guess there are many more women in the HR function per se, so I don't feel very excluded, but I guess culture keeps progressing as we have very different kind of people in the organization. So, yeah.
Your comments.
Let's take this aspect of women. You know, today, Harji, and across the sectors, the inclusion of diversity, women, it is not anymore to function. It is not function specific anymore. I mean, I can give you examples of manufacturing companies, including, you know, the one that I represent. We have, you know, over 200 women right in shop floor, you know, and they do work exactly the way men do. You know, they lift the rivet gun and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of, you know, change. And of course, how has that impacted the culture? There is a culture of, you know, collective working. There's a culture of collaboration. There's a work culture of respect. When we started to bring women on the shop floor, everybody said, you know, boss, kaise hoga? Then, you know, of course, now they say, wow, man, they do great job. They actually know precision. So they work on, you know, things like paint shop. And they're amazing. So honestly, sometimes bringing a very diverse workforce enhances, you know, your culture. It brings more inclusivity, and it brings in more penetration in terms of its longevity. You know, as she said, while there is nothing called good culture or bad culture, there are certain tenets of a culture that you would want to continue. Inclusiveness, care, connectedness, collaboration. I think when you bring a very diverse workforce, it kind of, you know, brings, you know, it sharpens these tenets and makes it a far more, you know, deep-rooted culture.
Your comments now.
Yeah, like I think all of you have said something or the other, and I would just like to add on to it. Like when we talk about culture, what is a culture? A culture is values plus behavioral, the behaviors in the organization, which creates the psychological environment of the organization, right? So like the way you behave, and I think the culture is made by every employee in the organization, though it is driven by the leadership. The leaders, they define the culture, like they follow, they promote those values, and they get that intentional cultures in the organization. So culture is driven by the leadership in any case, but then it is defined by the act of each and every employee in the organization. So if we talk about like the culture in the organization during the pandemic time, I think it was all about care, more care. People are not looking for the CTC now. They're looking for the care package. So the care, if you can give it to your employees, I think it's going to work better. I remember like during the pandemic time, we are from a financial services company, and there was a lockdown, but the stock markets were never closed. So the employees were coming to office even during the pandemic and we had to take special passes for them to come to the office. Like how to treat the employees fairly. There were a set of people who were working online, and there were a set of people who were working remotely, and there were a set of people who were coming on site. So how to create a balance, a fair balance between the employees, because there were voices as in like, we have to be in office and they are working at home. So we have to have that collaborative environment where like both the on-site as well as the remote employees can collaboratively work together. So there was a time when we had a canteen in our office, and the canteen guy has run off because he has to cater only now 20 or 30 people, wherein he was catering 600 people, because during the pandemic, only the essential services or only the employees who were essentially required to be there in the office has to come. So how to cater those 20, 30 employees? And then like there was an instructions given to the admin team, make biryani in the canteen area, because the employees have to eat something. And then even when they had made that food for them, how to give it to them? They were served on their desks and they were not called in the canteen area. We didn't call them that sit together because the fear of the pandemic was so high that people didn't want it to be sitting together. They didn't want it to have, or they didn't want it to come to office. And it was a requirement that they had to be there in the office. But then I think the collaborative environment, HR had a big challenge how to create that collaborative environment in the organization wherein the on-site as well as the people who were working remotely could coexist together. And that was a bigger challenge, I think. And the culture has to be, like I always say that down the lane, maybe coming forward, we are not going to ask the people to punch in and just say present. There would be 3 columns wherein they would be saying, are we happy today, sad or okay? So out of the 3, they have to choose. And even while taking the leave, they may not ask that I want to go for a leave. There would be 3 options like go for a movie, or you want to go for a dinner, or you want to freak out your day with your friends. So down the lane, I think it has to be, it's not going to be work-life balance, it would be life-work balance, because life is going to give in a priority over work. So we have to change those definitions, and unless and until the companies reinvent their cultures, they have to give away with their old decade policies, and they have to come up with new policies so that they can reinvent their cultures and gain the competitive advantage. So I think it is very much required.
Very nice. I'm going to implement in my company as well. You know, when you punch your cards, come in the morning, are you happy, etc. Whatever you judge. Yes, yeah, and it gets it's get led by the leadership. You know, in terms of how you actually practice yourself. It gets noticed by your employees, and then you start following, and the culture gets developed over it. Now we talk about the corporate success. You know, relationship of happy people with reference to the corporate success, and how do we define corporate success as well? Is it only EBITDA? It's only growth? Or people don't want to leave the company, they want to stay there, and likewise, such questions. So if you may please.
I think, so there's no doubt that the success of business actually is about short-term, medium and long-term, top line and bottom line. And I would not mince words. It is clear, you know, you are in business to do business. And to make money end of the day. But one has to make money sustainably today and in future. And to make money sustainably, you have to have sustained culture, you know, a culture that drives success. I mean, it's an old, this thing that, you know, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you don't, and I go back to my own example that, you know, year 2021 and 21-22, you know, many of us thought that our business is wiped off and most of us who are in manufacturing, because it's all touch labor. I mean, if you don't touch the machine, they don't run. And if machines don't run, there is no output. So if there's no output, there's no money. And where's the business? But I think that is where a sustained culture played an important role. People actually collaborated, came together, ensured safety, took care, brought people to work. And trust me, Harshji and my respected panel members, that if someone does the study, that companies that did well, survived and did well and showcased success were the ones who had great culture. So I think organization success, which is nothing but your EBITDA, revenue and profitability in the short term and the long term, is actually driven by fundamentals of tenets, fundamentals of culture. And the tenets of the same are driven by its people and taken forward by leadership.
Very well said. I will add to that, you know, in any organization, if employees can speak their mind and they are listened to, that helps a lot, you know. Many executives are scared. If I may say so, somebody may get upset on it, or my boss may not like it. If I am not able to openly say that, then it is not a healthy point or healthy culture, So your comments.
I think we have less than that. remaining. So very briefly, and that is what we practice and we believe at our company, that end of the day, if we go back home happy and if we are able to sleep peacefully, I think that is what matters. Okay. And no doubt, every business has to be profitable and has to be sustainable. If the business is not profitable, sustainable, you will not be able to take care of the employee, right? So that is a given. But having said that, I think it's very important that can we sleep peacefully end of the day?
Yes, at the end of the day, if we say that I wish the day was longer, I enjoyed working here, so that will be one indication.
Yeah. So I know time's up, so I'll keep it short. And to your comment, yes, business is there for their targets, the revenue, the numbers that they want to meet. But what culture does to that is, and there are multiple studies, and if you go to the Harvard Business Review, it talks about, if you have the right set of culture which engages people, the productivity of your people will be 2x. And that means, that implies to how much revenue that you can earn at the end of the day. And I think that's the impact of the culture that you create. And there are multiple organizations that now don't hire only because you are the right fit functionally, but are you the right fit culturally in the organization? Because we as an individuals are different. We all need different things from an organization. But if organization is extremely innovative, and if I am a person who likes to do same thing every single day and probably wanted to do in the same field, maybe that organization is not the right place for me, because I will never be happy, because I don't like to probably innovate every day. Maybe I'm not the person who like to do different things. Maybe I'm not the person who want to become a data scientist in the same example. So I think it's about, do I culturally fit in the organization is an important question that organizations should start asking. And I know a lot of organizations are. So define what you're looking for, what are the right set of behaviors, and do candidates and the talent fit in the right kind of a culture. Of course, people learn, people have different potential. Potential can never be tapped because potential also changes over time. But think, about, what values the organization bring in, and is that culture really bringing that 2x productivity?
Thank you so much. The time is up. And thank you for your comments and thank you for your wonderful views. Thank you for listening. Thank you.